Good afternoon and welcome to this meeting of the Georges River Local Planning Panel. My name's Donna Reigate and I'm the chair of the panel meeting this afternoon. We're currently streaming from the Georges River Council offices in McMahon Street, Hurstville. The panel members who make up the panel today are Wayne Carter, who's one of our expert panel members, and Awais Piracha, who is another expert panel member. And we're also joined by Fiona Prodromou, who is the community representative. So welcome to you all. We're the panel that have been appointed by the Minister for Planning to determine specified development applications, including the development applications that are on our agenda today, in accordance with the requirements of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act. I'd like to begin by acknowledging country. The Georges River Local Planning Panel acknowledges the Bidjigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional custodians of all lands, waters and sky in the Georges River area. We pay our respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who live, work and meet on these lands. I'm required to advise you that under the provisions of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act 1979, this meeting of the panel is being live streamed and will be made available on Council's website. In accordance with the revised meeting protocols, interested parties wishing to make representations to the panel were requested to register a summary of their interests, and we've received a number of registrations. We are going to hear oral submissions from the following people who will be called during the course of the meeting in the order of the items as published on Council's website. So our first three speakers are speaking in relation to the application relating to 53 Miles Street, Oatley, and there's Svetlana Kostowska, Robin Stahl and Sibila Chilov, and my apologies if I've mispronounced any of those names. Our next two speakers, who I believe will be joining us electronically, are relating to the proposal at 43 Bridge Street, Hurstville. That's Laurie Listowski and David Waghorn. We also have a speaker, James Liddis, in relation to the proposal at 29 Penshurst Street, Penshurst, and Matthew Benson will be speaking about the application at 5 Young Street, Penshurst. Right. As required by the Local Planning Panel Code of Conduct, panel members are required to disclose any conflicts of interest in respect of any matter on the agenda for a panel meeting. The relevant forms as prescribed by the New South Wales Department of Planning have been completed and are tabled for Council to be included in the online minutes of the meeting. And I'm glad to report that no panel member has disclosed any conflict of interest in any matter on today's agenda. So we've received development assessment reports from council staff for the 5 development applications we're looking at this afternoon. We've done site inspections of the sites in nearby locality for the 5 applications, and we will deal with each of them in order as published on council's website. Being DA 2023/0518 53 Miles Street, Oatley, demolition works, construction of a dual occupancy and swimming pool, and Torrens Tidal subdivision. DA 2023/0507 43 Bridge Street, Hurstville, demolition works, change of use from commercial to centre-based childcare facility, and alterations and additions. Mod 2024/0003 29 Penshurst Street, Penshurst, modification of DA 2022/0521 for extension of trading hours, change to hours of operation, Penshurst Hotel. DA 2023/0447 188 Princess Highway, Beverley Park, demolition works, alterations and additions to a heritage listed dwelling house and construction of a detached garage. And REV 2024/0012 5 Young Street, Penshurst, review of development application DA 2023/0064 for the demolition of existing structures and construction of a dual occupancy. So how this works, as we progress through the matters on the agenda, only those people who are registered to speak will be able to make representations to the panel. Each person who has registered to speak is requested to limit their presentation to 3 minutes. I'd ask those people who are speaking via Teams that they speak clearly and loud enough so that we can all hear them. And it would be helpful if the people who are joining us on Teams can leave their camera and microphones off until their turn to speak is announced. I'm required also to remind everybody that any defamatory, discriminatory or offensive language used may result in the responsible person being exposed to liability for which council and the panel take no responsibility. Right, so once we've heard all the oral submissions on a particular application, we'll move on to the next one. And members of the public are, of course, free to stay in the room and listen if they want to, or those on the broadcast to listen to the whole thing. We will then proceed into a closed session, which is not live streamed or recorded, to make our decisions, and the panel's determinations will be available on council's website once confirmed by the panel, which usually happens well within 2 or 3 days of the meeting being held. Right, so that's the preliminaries. We'll now call the first item, and I would like to invite Svetlana Kostowska, please, to address the panel in relation to the proposal at 53 Miles Street, Oatley. Okay. Okay. Shall we move on to Robin Stahl, if I'm pronouncing that correctly? Yes. If you'd like to please come and pop yourself up there, and you need to press the button on this microphone so it goes red so that everybody can hear you online.
Okay, thank you. So, Chairperson, members of the LPP, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak and express my concerns about the DA for 53 Miles Street, Oatley. I am the owner-occupier of 58 Maimai Street, which shares the largest portion of the eastern boundary with the property in question, 53 Miles Street, and I've lived there for 18 years. Thank you so much for making the time to inspect my property this afternoon and to consider my perspective. I have a series of concerns about the development as follows. Number one, preservation of a high significance tree. The English oak tree is a magnificent specimen and should be retained and protected. It has been given a high stars rating, which, as you know, means that it's in good condition, it has good vigour, it is visually prominent due to its scale and size. It makes a positive contribution to the local amenity, and I will come back to that point. It is attractive and beneficial in all seasons. It has a life expectancy of over 100 years and can never be replaced if it is removed. Due to its size, it provides considerable food and shelter to many species of birds and local fauna. Its canopy makes a significant contribution to the general tree canopy. As you will know, we need to double our tree canopy in the coming years in order to reach the government target of 40% for Greater Sydney. We need to preserve trees on private property as well as in public spaces. And this is for the greater good for all of us, to combat the increasing urban heat and preserve comfortable living spaces for us all. My second concern is about the row of lily-pilly trees, and you've seen them today. 9 mature trees, a height of around 10 metres. They're not even mentioned in the arborist report, and they are also planned for removal. Number 3, the setback. The developer has worked around the normal planning requirements by creating large additional so-called outbuildings. Not a garden or a tool shed. These buildings are effectively an extension of the living area of the house and could well be illegally converted to granny flats at a later stage. Instead of the normal 15% of the average site length or 6 metres, this proposal takes these buildings right up to within 900 millimetres of our boundary. Number 4, non-compliance. The scale and size of these outbuildings is totally non-compliant. The floor area is 33% bigger than that is allowed. The height is also way above that is allowed. And this offence is so much greater because there's not just one but two of these oversized buildings. So the proposal is of a bulk and scale that is totally inappropriate. It's non-compliant and please, it should not be approved. Number 5, there's no justification for this gross overdevelopment in the light of the current housing shortage. So the existing building comfortably houses 2 families already. So this proposal makes no increase in the housing supply. The only gain is a developer's profit, and that is at the cost of a considerable degrading in the privacy, the tree cover, the general amenity, and the quality of the housing stock in our neighbourhood. So number 6, as we all know, the report by the Development Assessment Officer clearly and strongly recommends that the DA be refused for a range of additional reasons that I haven't covered here today, including inadequate stormwater management, overshadowing of adjourned properties and so on. So I just please put it to the panel that this is an inappropriate application and it should not be approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for accommodating us on our inspection. Thank you. Okay. Are we in a position to get Svetlana Kostowska yet? Okay, it's your turn.
Yes, I can hear you.
Good. Away you go. Please address the panel.
Hi. Further to our meeting in June with Liam Frame, Manager of Building Development, and Council's Arborist Geraldine, I've been coordinating an amended submission with the arborist and stormwater consultants. At our meeting, Liam acknowledged that this may take some time to coordinate and as such did not advise on a deadline. So when I received an email regarding the application being referred to the next meeting of the Georges River LPP, it was a bit of a shock. At our meeting with Liam and Geraldine, we discussed the items outlined in Liam's RFI dated 1st of March 24. The issues raised were regarding landscaping, stormwater and outbuilding size. We agreed in principle that we would need to resubmit submit for the amendment in concept design and retain the English oak tree and to satisfy their concerns with regard to the tree encroachment. We were to provide additional route investigation to support the design and amended stormwater design, together with a new arborist report. We advised them that the stormwater design was able to be amended to suit Council's request for the maximum 45-degree splay to the curb. And with regard to the rear studios, the development as a whole yields a gross floor area under the maximum prescribed for the land, and as such, flexibility on its merit would be considered. On 8th of July, I received an email from Council stating the application had been reallocated to Sandy Habib, and it stated that Sandy would continue with assessments. However, there seems to have been no communication between Liam and the replacement planner as to the discussions we'd had in at the meeting and the in-principle items that we'd agreed on to finalise this submission. At no time, with regard to Sandy's email on the 25th July, with regard to answering a query, at no time did she advise me of a deadline for in her email. It seems like the additional second planning assessment has been prepared on the application since our meeting with Liam, which forms part of this referral to the LPP meeting. It brings up issues that were not raised as a concern in Liam's original planning assessment of the application. We request the panel defer the determination to allow us the opportunity to have discussions with Council and submit the amended material.
Just for clarity, are you the applicant or are you the?
I'm the
what
applicant,
capacity
yeah.
are you appearing today?
I'm the applicant.
Terrific. Okay, thank you very much. We might move on to our next speaker, and then I'll open it up to panel members to ask questions of any of the speakers in relation to this application, if that's okay. So we'd like to hear from Sibylla Chiloff, please. You need to press the button at the bottom of that thing there and it'll go red.
To speak.
That's
Good.
it.
Thank you. And do I continue pressing that, or is that sufficient? Thank you. Well, good afternoon, panel and ladies and gentlemen. Again, I'm here to highlight the inappropriateness of this development application, starting with the removal of the tree and the very mature, healthy oak tree, which has a lot of life still remaining. It's a landmark in the surrounding streets, and the large canopy is not, it's just so much larger than any other tree in the area. There's a scarcity of tree cover south of this property in that block, and removing this particular canopy and trying to replace it by 2 small trees, as shown in the proposal, is just totally inadequate. Any small tree takes years to mature, and the size and the type of tree is never going to replace this particular canopy. The other point is that Georges River has lost canopy cover overall in the last years since 2019. So this is another factor that should be considered. And it's not enough to really say, oh, well, there are plenty of trees in Oakley Park, which is not that far away. It doesn't work like that. It has to be in amongst the dwellings and the houses. So moving on then to the buildings they're quite bulky, they're very close to the street. And although there are houses, older houses in the street with the same setback, they don't have the same bulk because they don't have the same height at the street level. So these proposed buildings just don't fit into the streetscape. The other point is that these houses will cause a lot of overshadowing to the neighbours on the south, and the structures take up almost the whole land. Because the block's going to be subdivided, it leaves only just enough room to walk around on a path around these buildings. It's really not going to allow very much else to grow and for very much movement around the buildings either. And I think the other thing to be pointed out is that increased population density doesn't have to be equated with increased built area. So the house currently there can accommodate quite a large family together with a flat, whereas these 2 new buildings may only accommodate the same number of people in total. Then going to the outbuildings at the back, they're very tall. They cover the whole, or almost the whole area along the back fence of this property. They're going to be visible to a number of the houses on either side from their backyards. So it'll just be masonry that will be seen instead of a tree. The size of them is sort of, I think, unjustified. 42 square metres against the 30 square metres permitted for this size of outbuilding. The existing house makes excellent use of the site. The rooms generally face north, so therefore it is environmentally friendly in that sense. The new houses will require a lot of air conditioning. There's nothing said about any panels or solar panels on the roofs. The roofs are going to be a dark colour, which again is sort of contrary to what we're being told we should be looking for in new developments. So I think, unfortunately, that the proposed buildings don't make any improvement at all to the site, and they're just sadly maximising profit on their sale. That's all that's been considered. So there are serious shortcomings in the proposal, and I ask that it not be approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, members of the panel, do you have any questions for any of our speakers this afternoon?
Chair, I wanted to ask Svetlana, did I misunderstand you, or did you say you were investigating ways to modify it to keep the tree? Is that what you were saying?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, we resubmitted some in-concept designs with retaining the tree, which is what I was finalising in the submission, or the amended submission on retaining the tree.
Thank you.
My question is to Svetlana as well. If the panel were of a mind to defer the application, how long did you need to submit a revised package?
Well, the revised package is nearly complete as per addressing the letter dated 1st of March. Now, these additional items that have been brought up, I would need to have a meeting with council and discuss these items. So, yeah, I'm not sure, you know, from that point of view. So if say we were to have a meeting with council next week, it wouldn't take long to hopefully address all the additional items that they have brought up in the letter.
Thank you.
I guess it's a question of how much would be different, and then whether it's substantially the same or quite a different proposal, and what sort of additional assessment would be required as well, and which would contribute to the time frames. But anyway, any other questions for any of our speakers on this matter? No? Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody, for your time on Miles Street, Oatley, this afternoon. We appreciate everybody's contribution. And I'll now move over to 43 Bridge Street, Hurstville. We have Laurie Listowski and David Waghorn, who I believe are representatives of the applicant. So, Mr. Listowski, first cab off the rank.
Yeah, good afternoon. I was just wondering if we could get David Waghorn, our consultant town planner, on. He's on Teams. Is he there? Oh, there he is. Good. Good. All right. I'll say a few words and you'll say a few words. Okay.
You've each got 3 minutes. You're both registered. It's all good. Thank you.
Yeah, no, great. Well, firstly, the application has been recommended for approval, which we're pleased about. And just to say a few words to that the childcare centre is located in a second floor of a high-rise building, which we've got a number of in the past. So a lot of diligence has been taken to ensure that the amenity is there for that centre, especially a childcare centre. The authorities, the government authorities, have assessed the centre as and concurred with the application as being acceptable. Matters of safety are always first and foremost in childcare, which we take a lot of turn a lot of attention to in our designs, and the location. In this case, we have a building which is and has been sort of well built in its day. It's got two fire stairs. Obviously, that has to be managed well, so a plan of management is in place, evacuation procedures and the like as well, and that's been covered over in the report, I understand. There were some concerns by some submissions on that note, which is understandable, and I think those concerns can well be allayed by the plan of management in particular, and the way that children can be assessed. The current Building Code of Australia also pays reference and attention to matters of fire safety and evacuation, and these, of course, will be borne out in any construction certificate that goes forward. So those rules and regulations which came about in more recent times, of course, affords us the opportunity to ensure that safety is paramount. Matters of parking have been addressed, and that was something we need to provide some fairly accurate information about. There were some concerns about that there's sufficient parking for drop-off by carers and visitors, as well as staff parking in amongst a building that has other tenancies. That's been addressed, and I believe reported so. So that's it from me. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Waghorn.
Thank you, panel. I generally agree with what Laurie has said. The only thing I'd like to add to the car parking issue is that condition 52 was imposed by council to reinstate the approved car parking spaces. I don't believe this condition satisfies the Newbury principle. I don't think it's relevant to the current development, even though I understand the intention, but it clearly, I don't think it clearly relates to the current development, and we would seek its deletion if the panel is agreeable to that. However, if they are not agreeable to that, we would reluctantly accept the recommendation, including that condition, and more than likely fight it on another day. In other words, we don't want anything to hold up a determination of this application today, but we would just like the panel to turn their mind to the application of condition 52. Otherwise, I'd like to thank staff and council for the assessment of the application. We agree with all other aspects and have nothing else to add unless there are any questions.
Okay, members of the panel, questions. Fiona, I think you've got one.
Yep. Hi, David. Had a question. I'm not sure whether it's yourself or Laurie who are best suited to address this question. When we drove out to the site earlier today, I noticed that the tower actually had awning windows which opened out from the bottom, and there was quite a significant gap in the opening of the window. It was easy 20-30 centimetres. There was a plan that the planner showed me that indicated that the operable portion of the windows that are able to be opened for the childcare centre, the operable portion is above, I think it was 1.8. However, that's not what is physically, I believe, there on the building. So could we get some clarification on that, please?
Yeah,
Thank you.
The intention is, and I trust it's on the elevations, is that that those awning windows will be replaced by fixed glazing, and opening windows will be placed at 1.8 above. Yeah, no windows are openable below 1.8.
Okay, I wasn't clear on the fact that the windows were proposed to be replaced on that level.
Yeah,
thank you. That
absolutely.
makes it clear. Thank you.
Yeah, that's right.
Anybody else? Can I ask you, Mr. Waghorn, to tell me a bit more about the parking and why what's conditioned or proposed to be conditioned is not appropriate?
Sure. My understanding is the current proposal complies with the car parking, both staff and parent drop-off rates. So in terms of the application, we have no problem there. The issue seems to be I think it's the original approval, what was it, DA or BA 61 of 87. And I think council has undertaken an assessment to say that if we approve the 22 spaces for the current childcare, then it reduces the car parking rate for the overall tenancy, the overall building. There can be multiple tenants in that building. the car parking rate at the time of determination of the original building is very different to the car parking rate there is now. And if you were to apply the current DCP based on the, 11,200 square metres noted in the report of the original building, then you'd only require 186 spaces. So we would be easily compliant, and any change of use DA under any current or future DA would be applicable to the current DCP, which is very different to the calculation that council provided, which I think on page 103 is talking about 1 in 50 or 1 in 55. And in either event, the current control is 1 in 60, so we comply with that for commercial.
Okay, thank you for that. I wonder if any of the council officers would like to comment on that. Not at this time. Okay, thank you. Okay, anything else for Mr. Listowski or Mr. Waghorn? No? Okay, thank you both very much. We'll now move on
Thank you, panel.
to James Liddis, who is talking to us about 29 Penshurst Street, Penshurst.
Thank you, panel. I take it that you've got a copy of the submission that we've made? Yes. Thank you. So this application is one of those that over time has been overtaken by other events, I suppose. We've been the planners for the Penshurst Hotel for a number of years, so we've dealt with a few applications. This is another that's been made for the Sunday hours, and that's what it was made for, and it was subject to the vibrancy provisions that the government have gazetted with respect to Sunday trading hours, and now that you can trade a hotel after midnight. So we've made that application, and largely it's been made to come into line with the hours that the hotel's been able to achieve, the longer trading hours. So we put in the application Sunday trading hours, but then we've also put in another application, which I've noted in my submission, that's been in, it hasn't been determined yet, but that effectively seeks to continue the trial period for the Monday to Saturday without the trial period. So we've looked at the situation with respect to the actual application itself. We're happy with the officer's recommendation, obviously, for the Sunday trading hours to be extended, and understand a trial period might be required for that, but we don't understand why then the Monday to Saturday hours are also subject to trial period and seek to vary that component of the recommendation. There are options you could probably have. One of those would be to adopt what we're saying, which is if we can get all of the hours to be consistent if you're going to adopt the officer's recommendation, but without the trial period for Monday to Saturday. And that's largely on the basis of there's no real reason for it. The hotel has had those trading hours for some time, and it's proven its track record with respect to that. I note there's no police submission that's been received. I note there's only been one submission that's been made in regard to trading hours. Part of that concern was about poker machines. I've noted, so you're obviously aware of the Section 209 of the Gaming Machines Act, and you're not able to take into account the impact of poker machines. But with respect to the other issues that were raised, vandalism and violence, there's no record of any of that. Council don't have any records of any concerns with respect to the late trading hours. So the hotel's been able to trade the late hours. It's a low impact proposal. It doesn't have a nightclub or anything like that's going to cause noise. So really, there's no real reason not to allow the hours, especially from Monday to Saturday, to be permanent. If you're then going to insist on a trial period for the Sunday hours. If you're able to deal with this application either in the way that I've suggested or perhaps a slight variation to it, then obviously we'd be in a position to withdraw the mod application that is dealing with the Monday to Saturday hours. Thank you.
Just explain that to me again about the withdrawal of the mod application. So in really simple language, if
Yeah.
we do what today, then
So if we're able to make a decision today with respect to what's before you, what you've got before you today is agree with the Sunday extension of trading hours, but a trial period, and at the same time we're going to impose, which we hadn't asked for in this application, the Monday to Saturday hours to be lumped in with the Sunday hours.
for the travel.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So that's the concern. So if the determination was modified so that it read Monday to Saturday, these are the hours, they're unfettered, no trial period, but the Sunday hours have a trial period, that would be an acceptable outcome.
And what modification application would you then withdraw?
We'd withdraw the application that we had to make because the time period was coming up for the Monday to Saturday hours. So that application would no longer be required.
Right.
So I think there's some public interest sense in getting rid of one application, not having it there for any good reason. So to some extent, the council officer has been logical in what they put forward.
Thank you. Anybody else got any questions for Mr. Littis?
Chair, thank you. I'm a bit confused. James said there's no real reason not to allow the hours. But it still strikes me, the question strikes me is, how does the proposal contribute to the local economy, the local environment, and to social and community cohesion in this area?
Because there are people who want to avail themselves of the facilities of the hotel at the hours that we're suggesting. After midnight on a Sunday, there is sport, there's all sorts of things that go on. So whilst it may not be for everybody, there are some people who wish to avail themselves of the facilities that the hotel has. And it's been proven in terms of its impacts that there are no impacts. If there were impacts, you would have got a police submission, there would have been other people objecting. Understand people objecting to hotels because it's an easy target, but with one submission that doesn't really have any validity to it, I don't think there's a real reason there to limit it. And yeah, sure, it's not for everybody, but there are some people who definitely want to avail themselves to be able to watch Premier League, all sorts of sporting events that are on at all times. The vibrancy reforms from the New South Wales government are very deliberate, and they've been made on the basis to allow these hours to occur. And previously we did not have that. They were very restrictive on Sunday and always have been.
Thank you for your explanation.
James, I'm just looking at the change to the hours for the gaming room and lounge, and for the Sunday that means that you've only got that 1 hour between 4 and 5. Is that sufficient time for the staff to clean?
Yeah, an hour's plenty to clean a pub.
Okay, and you said that there was obviously demand.
Yes.
Is there any? I'm just wondering.
Just be aware that the applicant still has to make an application to New South Wales Liquor and Gaming in order to get the hours beyond where they have them today. So there's still substantial tests to be passed. This is only one very small part of the puzzle. And to be quite frank, it's more difficult to get the other approved.
The liquor license hasn't been changed.
No,
yeah.
no, you can't.
Yeah,
you cannot.
You've got to get this first.
You cannot do it. There's no jurisdiction to be able to do that.
Thank you.
It did before under the former Liquor Act and when the licensing court was around, but not today.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, our final speaker is Matthew Benson in relation to 5 Young Street, Penshurst. Calling Matthew Benson.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello?
Yep,
Okay, and how is the audio? Excellent. Thank you, panelists. So I'm assisting the applicant for 5 Young Street, Penshurst, a proposed dual occupancy development. We've noticed that the time within which this section 8.2 review may be reviewed, or the time within which the application may be reviewed, would appear to have finished. So the application was determined on the 17th of March. There are, under the Act, 6 months from the date referred to as the relevant date, which is the date the decision appealed against is notified or registered on the New South Wales Planning Portal. And this application was notified to the applicant on the 18th of March. And so 6 months after that is yesterday. So it appears that the application, the 8.2 application, has not been assessed within the relevant or the required time frame. And it does appear that the council has not met its obligations to review the application under the Act. If the panel forms the view that I am incorrect, then and that the panel can review the application today, then I would ask that the application is approved by deferred commencement conditions of consent, which, in my opinion, address all of the relevant matters. Those deferred commencement conditions I have sent to the officer, to the council's town planner who is coordinating things. And those conditions, in brief, I won't read them word for word, that the proposal is amended by changing the rear form so it pitches at level. The condition would readily address and easily address the height issue. Number two, either relocate the waste storage area to within the front setback, which can be readily accommodated around 2 metres back from the front boundary. Alternatively, simply modify the floor areas slightly through slight adjustments to achieve compliance with the gross floor area, because a degree of contravention is only by a minor amount, and that could readily be achieved. That could be a deferred commencement condition. Number three, delete the swimming pools and the associated paved areas. That will address the landscaped area issue. And then number four, get an up-to-date basics. And number five, just address the alleged anomalies on the plans. Apparently there are a couple of anomalies with figures, and that could be addressed by deferred commencement condition. Those conditions would address the substantive issues that have been raised. In addressing the reasons for refusal, in relation to reason 1A, the request for variation has already been submitted. So in relation to the lot size control, a clause 4.6 written request was already submitted, and that can be taken to be read for the section 8.2 review. It's not clear why that cannot be done. Reason 1B is the height issue. That's readily addressed. 1C, I've explained how that can be readily addressed just by adjustments to the gross floor area, relatively minor amount. 1D is related to the stormwater plans. There will inevitably have to be some connection to the street stormwater system. So surely that matter is ultimately going to be resolvable and can just be dealt with by a regular condition of consent for the stormwater matters to be addressed prior to a construction certificate. And the council has good control over that through the Local Government Act approval process anyway. So those issues are resolvable, and clearly council is not going to say that no development can occur on this site because you can't get a stormwater connection to the street. Surely you can, it's possible, we just have to resolve it. Reason for refusal 1E is addressed by deleting the pools and replacing them with landscaping. Reason 2A is dealt with by what I've already said. 2B the same. Reason number 3 is dealt with by everything that I've outlined already, and by having deferred commencement condition for the basics and deferred commencement condition for landscape plan, deferred commencement condition regarding the street tree, and a deferred commencement condition regarding the anomalies. Now, I appreciate that I've said a lot of deferred commencement conditions. That's not normally the way to do things. I appreciate that. However, the applicant only got notice of this outcome only a week ago, and the council officers have had plenty of time. And so, yes, you should not normally have so many deferred commencement conditions. However, those are the circumstances that we're in. So if the panel does form the view that it may determine this application, then I would ask that those deferred commencement conditions are imposed, and I've sent those to the officer, and I would ask that the other conditions of consent are also imposed. I would certainly expect that those have been drafted. If those have not been drafted, then I would say that the officers have not given the panel the opportunity to make an independent decision on this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Benson? No?
Yeah.
Yes?
May I ask, when did you send that communication to the council?
Only this afternoon, and that's because we initially just sent a letter within the relevant time frame for this meeting, stating that the council can't determine the application. The officer emailed earlier today to state why they think that they can, and it's only for that reason that I turned my mind to the possibility of addressing the other issues by condition. We did only get, the applicant did only get notice of the whole determination around a week ago anyway. So I appreciate it's a very short time frame for those deferred commencement conditions to be put to you, but we also have had only a short time frame, and in fact we were convinced that you couldn't determine it, except that the officer has opened the possibility, so maybe you can.
Thank you.
Anything else for Mr. Benson? I wonder if any of the council officers would like to comment in relation to the dates issue that Mr. Benson raised earlier and provide council's interpretation of that.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. My name is Nicole Askew and I'm the Coordinator of Development and Assessment, and I have been undertaking correspondence with Mr. Benson since receiving his request to address the panel earlier this week. In relation to the determination letter did have the 15th of March 2024 as the determination date. However, as part of our processing here at Council, the generated documents were generated on the 18th of March 2024, which will show in our system on the tracker that we are heading towards a determination of the application. Our publishing of a document is through the New South Wales Planning Portal, and that was undertaken on the 19th of March 2024, and that is the relevant date under Part 8.10 of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act that says that that is the time frame in which the 6 months is taken. That would mean that the application's 6-month assessment time frame would lapse today.
Thank you very much, Ms. Askew. Any questions? No? Okay. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, through you, Madam Chair, just in relation to Mr. Benson's comments about the deferred commencement conditions, I do have a copy of that email, and it arrived in my inbox whilst we were out in the bus doing the site inspections. So I have printed copies for the panel to consider as part of their determination.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think that brings our list of speakers to an end. I would like to thank everybody who's joined us in person and online to address the panel, to observe the proceedings this afternoon. Thanks to the council staff for all their work in putting all the material together for the meeting, and to my fellow panel members. We will now close the public meeting and enter into our closed deliberative session. And as I indicated earlier, we will endeavour to have our determination up on council's website within a couple of days of the meeting. So thank you very much, everybody, and I declare this public meeting closed.